Hey guys, I haven't gotten to the video that I wanted to make about the kingmakers and the king breakers. I'm gonna do that eventually, but just so much shit has happened, and I've had other videos to make, and today I just need to vent a little bit. That it's therapeutic, if you know what I mean. Um, it's been a bad few days. It's been a pretty bad few days. I've been going stir crazy in here, and yesterday it was the first time in a while that I actually tried to run again. And I mean, of course, in the apartment back and forth, but I didn't do it out of, it was a spur of the moment type of thing. I was going stir crazy. I was angry. I was upset with my mother because she, was again, not eating and not changing her clothes and not bathing. And, you know, and every bite of food was a fight. And, you know, accusing me of being used by Satan to hurt her. Why? Because I'm not going to let her starve. Um, it's, I was going crazy and I'm stuck in here. It's a studio. And so I started running back and forth in the apartment. I didn't even put my shoes on. I was just running with my socks back and forth. And I was every now and then letting out a scream. And at one point I hit the wall. Not one point. As I passed a few times, I hit it as hard as I could. And I screwed up my wrist a little bit. It was really bad. I was having a really bad day. But running felt good. Running again felt good. And the positive thing here is that, you know, because I had to stop, and for those of you, you've been watching my videos, you know that I took up jogging back and forth in the apartment, obviously not outside during the pandemic. And I got to a point where I could run for 40 minutes straight without stopping back and forth. But then I had to stop because I was restricting calories too much and I was too weak. I couldn't do it anymore. And I was afraid that, if I ever started again, I planned to start running again. But if I ever started again, I would have to start from the beginning because where I started was where, I couldn't even run for 30 seconds without stopping. And I got to a point where I could run for 40 minutes without stopping. I was afraid I would have to start over again from scratch, and I didn't. Yesterday, I was able to run consistently, well, jog really, without stopping. But it was more of a manic, hellish kind of way to work off energy and steam. And I was angry and I was borderline almost in tears, and I was hitting the wall as I passed it. And every now and then I let out a scream. It was more like a wail. I, and God, and I haven't gotten much sleep lately. I've been waking up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. with the tapping, and they're not letting me sleep much. Um, it's been difficult, and today it was hard again, and I got my mom breakfast, and again, she wasn't eating it. She was sitting there picking at it and then looking over at me to make sure that I saw, because she knows that's going to piss me off. That I have to be there to tell her to finish her food, because if I don't force her to eat, she won't, right? It's the same thing. If I don't force her to bathe, she won't. If I don't force her to change her clothes, she won't. So it's keeping me here 24/7, which I can't leave now anyway because of the pandemic. But it's difficult because I have to come back at different, even when before the pandemic and after the pandemic, I'll have to come back at different times during the day to make sure these things are done, are taken care of. And which prevents me from getting a full-time job. I mean, once I save up for a really cheap car, maybe I can do delivery for rideshare. I won't be able to drive people around because a car, the requirements, it would be too expensive to get a car that would meet the requirements. But I could get a cheap car and, do deliveries or something. And that way I can make my own hours and come back when I need to come back. But here's the point of the video. I got so angry today because, and the thing is, I love her. I love her more than anybody, and I know she has mental illness. But I was so angry because I can't leave. And it's a studio, and when someone is very mentally ill and they're hissing about Satan day and night, and everything you do is perceived as evil and looked upon with suspicion, and, even trying to make sure they're nourished, they see as something negative and suspicious. Like I have to, pick out of her food anything that she might find suspicious. Any little imperfection, or she'll use that as an excuse to not eat the entire thing or to throw out the entire thing, and then to say Satan is clearly trying to hurt her. So not only do I have to stand there picking everything out of it that she might find suspicious, but she's going to look for something anyway to play these games. And if there's nothing there, she's going to create it. Yesterday, it was the way the light reflected off the spoon, and she said it was a demon. It wears you down. It wears you down. And that's kind of what drove me to a fit yesterday, and I was exhausted. And today she's sitting there picking at her food again and looking at it suspiciously, and it's the food that I wanted her to get. What we had, she had wanted, and then once we got it, she didn't want it. So then she said, well, can you get me this? And of course, we didn't have it, so I went out and I got her what she wanted. And when I came back and I said, good news, they had what she wanted. And I knew she wouldn't be happy about it because it's something that they don't usually have, and they did have it. They had it that time. I was afraid I would have to go from store to store, but they had it that time. Well, we got it, and she wasn't happy about it because in reality, it was just about giving me trouble. But I gave, she said she wanted it. It was cereal. So I gave that to her for breakfast with the fruit that she said she wanted, and she sat there picking at it and looking at it suspiciously and then looking back at me, pulling this crap again. And then I had a flashback of something that happened on a bus before the pandemic. I had been running myself ragged trying to get her foods that she would eat and staying there and making sure she ate, 3 meals a day, 3 times a day. They bring dinner in the building, but she rarely would eat that. So I would have to, get her dinner myself, and she wouldn't eat that either. If we had it, she wouldn't want it. If she didn't have it, we would, if we had it, she wouldn't want it. If, we didn't have it, she would want it. So I would go out and find her what she said she wanted, and then there would be an excuse not to eat it. And, I was exhausted, I was just, it wears you down because especially when you don't have anyone to help you, you have no one else. It wears you down mentally, it wears you down physically. And I was thinking about something that happened on the bus. I went out for my own benefit. Well, it wasn't just for my own benefit. I went out to get laundry detergent. We needed more of that. I went to Target and, I got some of the things we needed. We needed laundry detergent. We needed paper towels. We needed some of that. So I got some of that. But I also spent a little time just walking outside. This was before the pandemic. And when, just to get fresh air, just to be free for a little fucking while, and got back on the bus, and they had the perpetrators come and hold a directed conversation, street theater, but I don't know which was. It was both, maybe a street theater plus a directed conversation. It started with one woman who was, she was wearing, at that point, I was obsessed with the rosary, and and I'm not Catholic, but I was obsessed with it. I literally, I would say the rosary over and over again. I was obsessed. It was like it would take my mind off everything else. And I had a physical rosary, and there was one woman who was dressed in a really skimpy outfit with, and she was wearing the rosary around her neck, and she was standing on the bus gyrating with the rosary around her neck, the exact same rosary I had. And she even came over to me and started gyrating and, being really acting really perverse while holding the rosary, the same rosary I had. So that was the first provocation that they did. And then the second was they had people with this directed conversation talk about how this person should not have gone out. This person has to take care of his mother. This person shouldn't have left the building. This person shouldn't have dared gone out at all. Why isn't this person at home taking care of his elderly mother? How dare you go out for one goddamn minute? The plight of a caretaker. And here's the point. Whether you're a man or a woman caretaker, and I know women get this a lot, how dare you take a minute for yourself? I know you get it a lot. It happens to both men and women, though. And there's a point to this, though. It isn't just, it isn't just a certain element who does that. There is a program. There's an agenda behind this, okay? There's a group of psychopaths who are literally trying to rip everything positive out of humanity. These are the people who are behind the gangstalking program. It used to be, the same thing that, during communism in East Germany was called Zersetzung. The Stasi were running this program. It's the same thing, it's why Manchurian candidates were created. The purpose was to create violent people, angry, violent people who just snap. Okay, they're trying to create a humanity where everything good is ripped out of them. When it comes to nurturers, when it comes to caregivers, you have positive qualities. You're nurturing, you're caring, you're loving. That's a positive. These are positive things, and the psychopaths running this program want a humanity without that. They want a humanity that just snaps, just lashing out at everyone and everything. And they just like they try to drive targets of gang stalking to the breaking point where you lash out. That's what they want. They want massive violence. They attack you in every possible way, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, physically, until you just snap. And then, of course, they use your response against you. You're this, you're that. See how bad he is. See how psycho she is. See how crazy he is. See how violent he is. See how, this and that. Whatever stereotypes they can use about you, they're going to use. And there are different stereotypes for men and women. And some are the same, too. But they want that. So, and of course, they can either then use that to either have you committed to a psych ward, you're crazy, and say that you're crazy and discredit you that way, or have you thrown in prison, or just prove that you're bad, prove what they're trying to prove about you, right? Set you up and trap you that way. So they attack and attack and attack until you do give a negative response publicly, and they use that against you. But what they want more is to create a deranged humanity, right? Without any empathy for others, without any... They want to rip out of us everything positive, everything good. And this starts with the nurturers, right? By making the role of a caregiver so burdensome and so hateful and so bad, and by putting so much on you that is just impossible to fulfill, they almost want you to start resenting the person that you're caring for. Whether you're caring for the elderly or whether you have children and you're caring for them, what's going to happen? You're going to have these people you care for, and then you have these psychopathic vermin infiltrating your life and saying, how dare you take a moment for yourself? How dare you go out for 1 minute? And I know, ladies, this happens to you a lot, but it happens to men too, right? Maybe not to the same extent, but it does, right? And women, how that is. You can, if you have small children, you don't get to sleep even. You're up day and night, and you take a breather for yourself, and someone says you're a terrible mother. How dare you take that minute for yourself, you horrible mother, right? That's what they're going to say. And it's going to be people saying that, the people who have no responsibility at all, worthless, useless sons of, who have no responsibility, who have nothing they're doing. When you're running yourself ragged and they point their finger at you for taking a moment for yourself, you know what you want to do at that point. And if you're having a particularly bad day, you might even have a thought. You don't like your kids that much. You might even have a thought that passes your mind. You start resenting them. And then you feel so guilty for even thinking that. Or, and I mean, how it is. And sometimes it happens to men too. If you're caring for the elderly or someone who's disabled, or especially if they're severely mentally ill, especially if you're the sole caregiver and you have to be there, this will wear you down and wear you out. And then if when you're the target of organized stalking, you have people trying to set you up, trying to make your life as hard as possible. And then they're going to say, no matter what you do, it's going to be bad. And they're going to try to set you up to say, oh, you're a terrible caregiver. You're a terrible son. You're a terrible daughter. You're a terrible caregiver. You can't properly take care of your family member. Even though there was nothing you could have done in that situation that would have resulted in anything better, in a better outcome, right? Sometimes you're put in damned either way situations where anything that happens is going to be bad, right? If you have someone who won't eat, for example, well, you're either going to force them to eat and you're going to be the bad guy, this cruel, evil bully, right? Or you're going to back off because you're so tired of having a constant fight 24/7. And then, they're going to get too thin, and then the same, or, attackers are going to say, oh, you're a terrible caregiver. Why didn't you make this person eat? Why is she so thin? Why is she not eating? Why couldn't you take better care of her? There's nothing you can do. And I'm just using that as an example. It could be over anything. And sometimes, if they know that's what's going on, that's what they're going to do. But sometimes they'll set you up. For example, you're out with your kids in the front yard and you have a gate in the front yard and the gate is closed and your kids are playing, and the organized stalkers will have someone drive their car right through your gate into the front yard out of nowhere. You could not have You didn't foresee it. You could not have expected it. They almost hit your kids. You report them and they say it's your fault. How could you let your kids play outside? The kids were playing in your goddamn front yard. The gate was closed. You couldn't have anticipated that someone was going to run their car through the gate, and it came out of nowhere. But they're going to blame you, especially, if you're the mother. How dare you let them play outside? It wasn't your fault. But they're going to set you up to say you're a bad mother, right? You can't make a mistake. If you don't make any mistake at all, they're going to try to set you up to say that you're a terrible caregiver, a mother, a father, whoever you are. But if you do make a mistake, God help you, it will never be, you'll never live it down. They're going to use that for the rest of your life to blame you for every possible flaw, everything bad that happens, even if it had nothing to do with it. They're never going to let it go. You are not forgiven, especially if you're a target of organized stalking. That's how it is. You can't make a mistake, okay? And if you don't, they're going to try to set you up and entrap you anyway. But if you, God forbid, make a mistake, it will never be let go. They're going to use it against you for every negative thing that happens in the future, even if it had nothing to do with it. This is the situation you're in. And at some point you become so tired and so exhausted and worn out, you begin resenting the person that you are a caregiver for. And especially if they're difficult and they're making things difficult and they know the situation you're in, they know that you're going to be blamed no matter what. So why make things more difficult when they know it, when they know it's going to happen, right? You begin resenting them. And that's exactly what the organized stalkers want. The psychopaths behind this program, that's exactly what they want. They want you to resent the person you're caring for. They're going to make this as brutally difficult as possible, as burdensome as possible. So not only do you begin resenting, the people you're caring for, whether it's someone who's sick, someone disabled, someone who's mentally ill, a child, a senior, whoever it is. But other people who are watching this happen are going to start saying, I don't want to be in that role. I don't want to be a mother. I don't want to be a father. I don't want to be a caregiver. Right? Because look what's happening to this person. Look at what's happening to her. She's a mother and she can't take one breather outside her home without being told she's a terrible mother for taking a goddamn moment for herself. He can't go out with his friends for one night without saying he's a neglectful father. She can't make one mistake without that being used against her for the rest of her life. She's a terrible caregiver. He can't go to he can't go take a walk without saying he should be at home. He can't take one fucking moment for his goddamn self without them saying, how dare you take one moment for yourself? And the people saying it are people who have no responsibility. And they're doing it on purpose so that you hate. But you don't really hate the people you're caring for. You love them. And here's the thing. Those of us who are in this position, we have to pull back and remember that we do love the people that we're caring for. We love our parents. Those of you who have kids, you love your kids. You love, you don't hate them. You've got to stop allowing the psychopaths running their goddamn worthless mouths off to turn you against the people that you love. It's not the fault of the people you're caring for, even if they are difficult. There is an organized program that wants to just rip out of people any desire to be a caregiver, a nurturer. And they're doing it by making these roles as difficult and as burdensome and as hard as possible, by putting such a burden on these people and by making their job so impossible, you don't want the job anymore. They're doing this on purpose. And we have to try not to let them. You are caring. You are loving. When you have those moments of feeling where, sometimes you just resent the person. No, you don't. You love him. You love her. And it's okay to have these feelings, given what's being put on you. It's okay. Find some constructive outlet. God forbid you can't go out. I don't know, punch a pillow, do something, scream if you have to. Don't let them silence you, because that's the second part. They want to silence you. They want you to repress all of this, because then it becomes like a boiling pot. You take a pot of water, you put it on a kettle, you close up those vents so that the steam can't be released, and keep turning the heat up. at some point, there's going to be an explosion, and that's what they want. The more they put on you and the harder they make it, and the more twisted they are, and the more unreasonable they are, and the more crazy the demands get, and the more unfair the accusations get, the harder it becomes. The more it's important that you release that. And they tried to prevent even that. That's the second step. They tried to prevent you from venting. They tried to silence you so you can't say anything about it until you just explode. And that's the point, where things can get bad, right? And that's what you want to prevent. Pull back, okay? When you hear this shit, this filthy sewage coming from these worthless animals and human flesh, understand the sewage dump vermin saying these things and putting this on you, they have no responsibilities. They're pointing their finger at you for not being good enough, not being this enough, not being that enough. They have no responsibilities. Who the fuck are they to say anything? They know nothing. Second of all, they're trying to silence you. Don't let them. Vent however you have to in a constructive way, right? Punch a pillow, punch your bed, punch the wall. Just don't let them rip out of you everything positive. And don't let them put in your mind that maybe you hate the person you're caring for, because you know you don't. And it's not their fault. You love them. Today I said some really mean things. I lost it. I didn't vent enough when I had to over the last few weeks, and I, because I haven't been running anymore, which until yesterday, it built up and built up and built up, and this morning it just all let loose, and I said horrible things, and now I feel guilty. The role of a caregiver, who's also a target of organized stalking during a pandemic. Let's just keep adding these ton of bricks, right? It's hard not being able to go out. Even though when I did go out, I was condemned for that. How dare I take a minute? And now, too, I'm anticipating this, because when the pandemic ends, I'm going to start running again outside instead of just in the apartment. And I know what's going to happen. And I'm going to take my fucking camera and record every goddamn word those worthless, useless pieces of vermin sewage lackeys say. How dare I take a moment for myself? Okay, I'm recording it. There's a reason that a lot of people don't want to be caregivers anymore, and they don't want to be parents. And that reason, there's an organized campaign to just make these rules so burdensome and so hateful. Where so many unreasonable standards are put on you. You can't even make, especially, I know you women take a lot of this, you can't make one mistake without having that used against you for the rest of your life, right? But men too, especially, you can't go out, you can't do anything without being guilted and shamed for it. Who the hell wants that? Who the hell wants to live that way? They're doing it on purpose, folks. These are the organized stalkers. The lackeys working for them, but there's a group behind this, and I'm going to talk more about that group. The Kingmakers and the Kingbreakers. I didn't make that video, and I'm going to. Anyway, I'm going to try to jog a little, because I need to work off some steam. I said some horrible things today, and I regret it. It's not her fault. I love her dearly. I don't resent her. This is just so hard. And it was that flashback that really drove me to it. That notion that because, I'm a caregiver, but I'm the only one here, and I have to be here. But really, I'm not allowed one fucking moment for myself? One goddamn fucking moment, and I've done something wrong? Really? Fuck you. You do nothing for anyone. I'm going to go run. I'm going to go run inside, of course, but I'm going to jog again. Feels good to jog again. And now that I put on some more weight, I'm not restricting as much. I can jog again, and I'm glad that I can. Hopefully I won't punch a wall today, though. I'm afraid I could punch right through it. Anyway, next video, hopefully, kingmakers, king breakers, and I'm going to say some things that are controversial. It's about time. No more fair.